really is wild, man, to watch the hoops that the media will jump through and the pretzels that the average leftist can twist themselves into, all to cover up for stolen valor of a candidate that shouldn't have even been chosen in the first place. I mean, it is absolutely, it's amazing, man. The same people that talked about Donald Trump's bone spurs so many times that they probably talk about it in their own sleep are now attacking the military service of JD Vance in order to run cover for Tim Walz, who may be the most disappointing candidate in all of our history.
There's now a new line that JD Vance is using. Of course, you have two veterans, right, who are the running mates here, and he's using this line about Walz's military service. Let's listen.
When the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did it. I did what they asked me to do it, and I did it honorably, and I'm very proud of that service. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him, a fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people that he served with. I think it's shameful to prepare your unit to go to Iraq, to make a promise that you're going to follow through, and then to drop out right before you actually have to go. He said we shouldn't allow weapons that I used in war to be on America's streets. Well, I wonder, Tim Walz, when were you ever in war? What was this weapon that you carried into war, given that you abandoned your unit right before they went to Iraq, and he has not spent a day in a combat zone? What bothers me about Tim Walz is the stolen valor garbage. Do not pretend to be something that you're not.
I wonder what you think about that, Matt. There are some questions. The question of the weapons comment. We should also mention there's been reporting that JD Vance did not see combat in his role. I would argue it doesn't matter. They both served. But what do you think about this kind of getting some swift boat vibes here?
It absolutely does matter, man. It matters. It matters a lot. And it's not that they both served. It's how they both served, right? And Vance said it perfectly. When he was asked to go, he went. And when Walz was asked, he put in for early retirement, so early that it actually cost him his rank because he had to leave so quickly, so hastily, that he wasn't able to take the class that would actually make him a real command sergeant major. And now these people want to talk about whether or not JD Vance ever saw any combat in the actual war zone that he did serve in. And it's wild, man. It's like these liberals are saying that the people in war, the people planning missions, the people keeping the machinery working, the people cooking the meals, it's like they're saying those people don't matter. It's like they're saying the only people whose service actually matters are people who are pulling triggers, right? And if that's what they're saying, man, that is just ridiculous. Because honestly, I mean, whoever is cooking the food and doing the laundry in an actual war zone is much more brave and 1,000 times more honorable than a guy who abandoned his unit on their way to Iraq. And all this shows, man, all this shows is that these people have no soul. They have no values. They care only about tribalist partisanship. And that's it.
I also think that JD Vance, as a messenger on this, may be an imperfect messenger because we have, as you introduced him, as a combat correspondent, which was what his title was. But when you dig a little deeper into that, he was a public affairs specialist, someone who did not see combat, which certainly the title combat correspondent kind of gives you a different impression. So he may be the imperfect messenger on that.
Yeah, apparently that's exactly what they're saying. They're trying to convince you that the guy in the combat zone who didn't actually fire his weapon in combat is just not the right messenger to go after the guy who lied about carrying a weapon into a combat zone that he never visited in the first place. This is what they're saying. And they're also trying to tell you that the Minnesota National Guard has come out and cleared it all up. And that because Walz was once a maybe command sergeant major, that he can actually say he was once a command sergeant major. But the problem is he doesn't claim that he once was one. He claims that he is one. And no one wants to talk about why he isn't one anymore. And it's not just some verbal mistake the guy made. It's repeated. It's repeated over and over and over again. And like all good leftists, he did it on tape. And I'm going to show you that in a second, man. But if you're enjoying this content, hit the like button and subscribe. It really, really does go a long way to helping the channel grow. And it really does mean a lot.
Good morning. I'm Tim Walz, and I'm running for Congress in Minnesota's 1st Congressional District. I'm a retired command sergeant major. I spent 24 years in the Army National Guard.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congressman Tim Walz.
It's a real honor to be able to pay tribute to the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division and to your families and friends as you prepare to deploy in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. As a 24-year veteran of the National Guard and the Red Bull Division and a retired Command Sergeant Major, I'm especially proud of you. You are continuing a long and great tradition of service by the citizen soldiers of the 34th, a tradition symbolized by the fact that the 34th served the most consecutive days in combat both in World War II and in Operation Iraqi Freedom. You are also doing something truly exceptional as you prepare for this mission of unprecedented scope in Iraq.
So this is who this guy is, man. And even if you don't want to talk about stolen valor, you have to at least reconcile the fact that the guy is a liar and essentially a coward, right? And honestly, that's fine. That's fine. I completely understand not wanting to go to Iraq, right? And if the Guard had a way to let you out of it, that's fine. But if that's the case, that should be the last time you ever even think about talking about it. You shouldn't use the role you abandoned to make yourself look like something that you aren't, right? And I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation to have of these people, but that's just not how Democrats do it, man. Walz is not the first, right? That is for sure. He is not the first stolen valor Democrat. But whatever the case, I mean, it's working. Here we are talking about it, which really makes this the best thing about Kamala Harris picking him, because he's such a bad pick that there's no one's even talking about what a disaster she is right now. And this particular issue, I do not think this is going to go away.
That point, do you think this is something that the campaign needs to address in a bigger way than they have?
Yeah, I think they should clean it up. It's conceivable that he's been loose with his language or said stuff that's not. I mean, there's people are human beings on these campaign trails, and so. But now he's running for a major position. If he needs to clean it up, clean it up. The reality is, if he said one or two things or said some things that turned out to be maybe a little bit too sloppy, fix it, because he's got a gazillion people who are willing to stand up for his character. He's got gay students who are willing to stand up for his character. He's got people he's served with willing to stand up for his character. If this comes down to a character contest between this ticket and Donald Trump, we're going to win 50 states. So let's just get this cleaned up and move on.
So
yeah. Clean it up and move on, Van Jones said. And remember, guys, this guy is supposed to be some sort of journalist. And we is always what he says. Whenever he's talking about the Democrat ticket, he says, we need to move on. He says, if this is about character, we're going to win because of our support among gay high school students. I mean, what kind of clown show are these people running, man? It is completely and totally insane. But if you think Van Jones talking about all that Walz has done for gay students is goofy, wait till you see CNN invite on Kamala Harris's old boyfriend, Montel Williams, to try to get ahead of this whole stolen valor show that they have going on. And here's the thing, man. Do not forget why this is even happening. The media, they're not questioning this stuff because they dug it up and they want to get to the answers. You know, they want truth. They're talking about this because JD Vance tracked them down and made them talk about it. And really, they're still not even talking about it to get answers. They're talking about this to deflect and memory hole as much of this stuff as they possibly can.
Use of the term stolen valor, which is a very divisive term to be used against someone who served for 24 years.
You know, I came in a long time ago, back in 1974, delayed entry program. Went through
You went to the Marines, right?
Marine Corps, went through boot camp at Parris Island. When I came in, we were still extracting people from Vietnam.
Right.
So therefore, the National Defense Ribbon is granted to anybody that came in before 1975. I didn't go to Vietnam, but I'm a Vietnam-era vet. Very proud of that. The fact that I put my life on the line at a time when it wasn't vogue for us to join and enlist in the service. And right now, you know, I do a show that's called Military Makeover, where I go all over the country and we redo veterans' homes from the ground up. We have hundreds of people show up at those homes. When they do, there are veterans of every one of the last 5 wars. They show up. Not one of them tries to divide the entire group of people over the fact that you might have been a cook, you might have been a special intelligence agent, which I was. But at the time, because I didn't go into combat, I still have the right to actually say I am a combat vet. I think with Walz, he has the right to say what he said. If he carried that rifle from the armory over to the practice range to qualify, He carried a weapon that is a weapon of war. So I don't understand.
But that's actually not what he said. He said he carried it into war. Montel said the guy served and should be appreciated for that. You know what? I agree. That's true. He did serve and he should be appreciated for that service. The issue isn't his service. The issue is he abused his service and he disrespected the service of his fellow veterans who did serve in actual combat when he lied about the fact that he saw combat. I mean, come on, man. I mean, the guy is running for the second most powerful man in the world. And this stuff matters. I mean, they got rid of Lion Brian Williams for lying about being shot at in a helicopter. And he was just a hack news anchor. If news anchors can't steal valor, you shouldn't be able to become vice president if you do the same thing. I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable stuff. I mean, you can't defend it.
I'm curious, Scott, what you make of this. This is a very tender thing to be throwing around when someone has served for 24 years. And to be fair, JD Vance served for 4. Neither one of them were in major combat.
Again, man, this has absolutely nothing to do with what JD Vance saw once he got to Iraq. This has nothing to do with him seeing combat or really anyone seeing combat. It has to do with lying about it. And if you really want to see the difference between these two guys, and honestly, these media hacks really are making the point without realizing it. But if you really, really want to see the difference, in JD Vance's book, he talks about Iraq, right? And in the book, he says he's very thankful that he didn't see combat. And juxtapose that with Walz, who lied about going, and it all becomes so clear. I mean, these people like to play word games, but none of this stuff is important. And there is a difference between these two guys.
Well, he wins in Iraq. I mean, JD Vance did go overseas, number one. Number two, I think we should all just acknowledge everybody who signs up to wear the uniform deserves our thanks and praise. That includes you, JD Vance, and Governor Walz. I mean, anybody who does this is an American hero, in my opinion. I also think when you enter the arena of politics, your public statements and your record are subject to scrutiny. And I do think there's some evidence that Walz has at least embellished at times his record to some degree. One thing on the fact check we're not talking about tonight is that when his campaign started for Congress, he did issue a press release acknowledging that he'd already been notified they may be going to Iraq. We're not talking about that much, but he knew it. He did get out, and he did choose to go into politics. That's a fact. Now, you can say it's not bad or it's good or it's indifferent, but that is a fact. And so I think the Trump campaign is going to pick over his record just the same way the Harris campaign is picking over J.D. Vance's record, which I don't know if you guys have picked up the paper lately, but it's been a pretty substantial vetting, and I think Walz is going to get his time as well.
As always, man, perfectly said. I mean, Scott Jennings, man, thank God that there's at least one person with his credibility and his character within this whole mainstream corporate media monstrosity, right? And I honestly cannot imagine what it must be like to be him, man. I mean, going to work with these kinds of people every single day has got to just, I don't know how he does it.
David, how are people going to see this? From the public's view, most of the people in this country don't sign up for the military.
Yeah, 24 years is a lot of service. He signed up when he was 17 years old. He served for 24 years. I think people will honor that. And, I honor JD Vance for spending 4 years in the military. I'm not going to demean him because he was a press officer in Iraq. He went, he served. Good for him. But I think what it reflects more than anything else is there is a flailing going on right now on the part of the Trump campaign to try and figure out how to deal with Walz, because he made I think a strong impression last night. He's by all measures kind of the all-American guy. He was from a small town, school teacher, coach, and years of service to this country. And I think, I kind of think Americans are tired of this and this kind of politics. And
but the one thing I would say,
what planet are these people on, man? No one is demeaning anyone else's service. Actually, that's probably not true. These people are doing everything they possibly can to demean and diminish the service of JD Vance. But no one is demeaning anything about Walsh's service. They're calling him out for lying about it, for embellishing it, and doing it all for personal gain. I mean, it is that freaking simple, man. And these guys, it's such a lazy deflection, right? Anything that is negative or inconvenient for the propagandists, they always say the same thing. This is just not important to the American people. This isn't what the American people want to talk about. But here's the thing, man. A lot of veterans seem to actually want to talk about this, right? But even if they're right, even if no one wants to talk about it, the same people talking about JD Vance and his cat lady comments from 2021 for the last month, they don't get to just bump into an inconvenient fact and ignore it because it's beneath the discourse of the American people, right? I mean, that's garbage, right? And it's such a disgusting fraud. I mean, truly, man, our media is such a truly disgusting fraud. I mean, they have taken the worst and most unliked vice president in history, and they've run a complete propaganda campaign for it, man. And the average consumer of all this media garbage is just letting them do it, man. It's bordering on mind control, and it is completely freaking insane.
David, I would disagree in that they're flailing on how to define him. It's very easy. His record is even more radical and liberal than Kamala Harris hopes to be. So it's a very easy record to attack. In this case, though, I think what we're finding out is there's been a long history. There were attacks on George W. Bush's military career. There was obviously a lot of attacks on John Kerry's military career by Chris LaCivita, who now runs Donald Trump's campaign. When you embellish that record, and it's little things, not just whether you were carrying the weapon of war into war, but saying that you retired as a command sergeant major when you never achieved that rank because you didn't complete the school. You were promoted to it, but you had to complete the school. You retired, you go back down to EH, you go back down to sergeant major, yet his biography still lists him as a command sergeant major.
Which is
little things like that, though, start to add up over time, and I think when you're
you're right that he retired before he could complete the course, so he goes back. But he did get point of that. What he was a sergeant major, as I understand. I wasn't in the military. Is quite an honor in and of itself.
He gave 24 years of his life.
Right. Yes.
At that point in time, if they sent, I know people, 1,000 of them who got orders to transfer to someplace that they didn't want to go and said, no, I'm going to get out.
Can I just say thank you for your service?
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Vance, for his service. Yes. And thank you, Governor Walz, for your service. And thank you for all the people who are serving our country now and who have lost people to war. I've lost a friend.
She hasn't even said it yet, but I'm pretty confident something despicable is coming. I have absolutely no doubt. She just thanked JD Vance for his service. I promise you this woman's about to say something stupid, but that's not even why I stopped this, right? I want to back up a little bit. These guys talked about Waltz listing the wrong rank as some little thing. And I don't know, I'm no expert, but that doesn't feel like a little thing to me. I mean, Axelrod even said it. Command Sergeant Major is a pretty special rank to achieve. So I think lying about it can't be a little thing. And I'm no vet, so maybe I'm wrong, but my gut tells me that is not a little thing. That's not a clerical error. But I mean, that said, I want to see where this particular lunatic is heading with this stuff.
In the Iraq War. So I understand I'm part of that JD Vance generation, where we were the generation of the Iraq War. It doesn't matter if he served 4 years, 4 weeks, or 24 years. He served his country. If you want to attack him on his policy, attack him on his policy. This is not the greatest of America to go after somebody in this way. And I do agree with David that it's picking at the worst part of what Americans are so sick of. And I don't think it will end well. And I don't think it's what you need to win this campaign. If you think you have a good policy position, then run on that. Sure, he might have misspoke, but let's not if you want to hold a candle to your candidate and how he misspeaks sometimes, he called our veterans losers.
That's been debunked. That's nonsense.
But the truth is, it has not been debunked.
It's absolutely been debunked.
But here's the thing.
Lie.
He didn't serve, and so he shouldn't talk about veterans at all, okay?
And the truth is 1.3...
I knew exactly where this lunatic was going, man. That was actually pretty easy. I'm always blown away when these people talk about, Trump calling the military losers. They can't possibly actually believe that, right? If they do believe that, then they're fools, man. Because here's the thing, man. If he didn't say the things that are actually on tape, dictator and bloodbath and very fine people and all the other garbage that they've weaponized, then what kind of moron would believe the things that are not at all verifiable? I mean, the answer is they believe it because they want to. They need to. I mean, these people are sick. They're so sick and they have to believe every single negative thing that they hear about Donald Trump. It's almost like they're duty bound to believe it. But honestly, I mean, that we expect that. That is all to be expected. But it's the other stuff that I think is even worse, man. Again, they keep defending Walz lying by saying, oh, he just misspoke, or I don't know, man. It's crazy. I mean, they say Trump is a world-class liar for embellishing a crowd size, but they say Walz just misspoke when lying about his rank and lying about his role in a war. I mean, you cannot make that stuff up, man. And to cap it all off, Donald Trump can't even talk about it because, of course, bone spurs. He's just not allowed. He can't even talk about vets or whatever. I mean, I can't take any more of these guys right now. I mean, this is who these people are. And this is what we're up against, man. They will excuse and cover up literally anything to install whatever puppet they want into power. And honestly, I would bet you that they don't even remember why. They do not remember why they want these people to win so bad. They're just doing it because at this point, they have to, right? We are living in crazy, crazy times. But that's just my take, man. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. And if you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.